Sadly, we have a tendency to sort of overlook this war. Give us an update. How much money have we spent? How many people have been lost over the last 17 years?
Hi, David. Well, as you say, it's a good day to commemorate. It's always a somber day, and I can't really cheer things up too much by talking about the state of Afghanistan. I think the way to think of it, if you're hopeful, is that at least the government is still in control of the major cities most of the time, or almost all the time, and most of the major roads. But the Taliban has not gone away, and the Afghan army and police have been an imperfect creation at best, and they still, of course, depend on now about 15,000 Americans and about 20,000 total foreign troops to buck them up. In terms of costs, we've spent going on $1 trillion on this war, and we've lost about 2,300 Americans. And the Afghan people have suffered, of course, and often the casualty figures about the Afghan people are presented, and they are somber as well. I think it's worth underscoring, though, that life is certainly substantially better for the Afghan people today than it was in the periods of the 70s, or excuse me, the 80s or the 90s, when that nation was at war, first with the Soviets and then really internally with each other, and then when the Taliban took over. So that period of time, relative to those years, there has been considerable improvement, but there's still a lot of violence, and we're sort of stuck at a level where we haven't really managed to see momentum shift in favor of the government. In fact, the momentum has gradually eked away from the government ever since NATO drew down its forces starting around 2011. And now we're hopeful that at least that can stabilize with this mini buildup under President Trump, but it's not clear that's yet happening.
So Karen, as Michael says, in many ways the lives of ordinary Afghans are better, actually, than they were before. Did we accomplish the central mission that we had after 9/11, which is basically to make sure we were fighting the war there rather than lower Manhattan or at the Pentagon? So we have not had Taliban attacks on us. We've had not al-Qaeda attacks on us.
Right, but that's a very complicated question. Did we accomplish what we set out to accomplish? Yes, taking the war there rather than here was one goal. But from the very beginning, in terms of our strategy in Afghanistan, the question was, were we there to defeat al-Qaeda and the Taliban, or were we there for nation building? And this conversation actually divided the policy community then, as it divides it now in some ways. I think President Trump is now trying to draw a line in the sand and say, look, we're going to try, look, we're talking about negotiating with the Taliban, sitting down at the table with the Taliban. One of the things that's happened over the course of the last 17 years are the United States getting the lesson time and time again that we don't know who to trust. And look at all the years, and so many scholars and commentators have written about this now, about the relationship between Pakistan and the Taliban, the Pakistan Intelligence Service and the Taliban, and trying to figure out who's on our side, who isn't on our side, and it's even more complicated than that. Who's on our side for this part of our mission, but not on our side for that part of our mission. And so when you ask what the mission is, it's actually something that we've been conflicted about from the very beginning.